Let me ask you something. Think about the strongest person you know. Not physically strong, but mentally. The one who seems unshakable. The one who walks into chaos and somehow stays calm. The one who doesn't spiral when life falls apart. Have you ever wondered what's actually different about them? Because here's the thing most people get wrong. It's not that they have some superhuman ability to handle pain. It's not that they don't feel fear or doubt or exhaustion. They feel all of it. The real difference is what they refuse to tolerate. And the moment I understood that, everything about the way I saw strength changed completely. Mental strength isn't built by what you push yourself to do. It's built by what you draw the line at. It's built in the quiet, private moments when you decide, this far and no further. So today, we're going to talk about 5 specific things that mentally strong people simply will not put up with. Not because they're cold or emotionally unavailable, but because they understand something most of us were never taught. Tolerating the wrong things doesn't make you kind. It makes you stuck. The first thing mentally strong people refuse to tolerate is the habit of living inside someone else's version of their life. And I don't mean that in a vague, motivational poster kind of way. I mean very literally. They refuse to make major life decisions based on what other people expect of them. Most of us, if we're being honest, carry around an invisible audience in our heads. Parents, old friends, people from high school we haven't spoken to in a decade. We make choices and then immediately imagine what they would think. Mentally strong people have done the uncomfortable work of identifying whose voice is actually in their head, and they've learned to question whether that voice deserves to be there. They've realized that living for external approval is one of the most exhausting things a human being can do, because approval is never permanent. The moment you earn it, the goalpost moves, so they stop chasing it. Not because they don't care about people, they do, but because they care more about not wasting their one life performing for an audience that isn't even watching as closely as they think. The second thing they refuse to tolerate is staying in situations that require them to become smaller. This one cuts deep, because most of the time, when we shrink ourselves, when we stop sharing our opinions, stop taking up space, stop pursuing what we actually want, we don't even notice we're doing it. It happens slowly. A relationship where your ambitions are subtly mocked. A workplace where your ideas are consistently dismissed. A friendship where you always end up feeling worse about yourself after every conversation. Mentally strong people pay attention to how environments affect them. They notice when they leave a room feeling drained versus energized, and they take that seriously. They understand that who you spend time with and where you spend your energy is not a small thing. It literally shapes who you become. And they are not willing to become less of themselves for the comfort of anyone else. The third thing is one that most people in self-improvement circles actually get backwards. Mentally strong people refuse to tolerate toxic positivity, especially from themselves. We live in a culture that tells us to think positive, to choose happiness, to put a good spin on everything. And on the surface, that sounds healthy. But there's a version of positivity that is actually a form of emotional suppression, and mentally strong people recognize the difference immediately. When something is genuinely painful, pretending it isn't doesn't make you strong. It makes you dishonest with yourself. Real mental strength means you're willing to sit in discomfort long enough to actually understand it. You're willing to say, this is hard, and I'm struggling, and that's a real thing that deserves real attention. The research in psychology is incredibly clear on this. People who allow themselves to fully process negative emotions recover faster, make better decisions, and have greater long-term resilience than those who suppress or bypass their pain with false positivity. Strength is not the absence of difficult emotions. Strength is the capacity to feel them without being destroyed by them. The fourth thing mentally strong people won't put up with is the trap of waiting for the right moment. Now, this might sound like basic productivity advice, but it goes much deeper psychologically. The waiting for the right moment pattern is almost always rooted in fear, specifically fear of failure and fear of judgment. We tell ourselves we're being strategic, we're being patient, we're waiting until the timing is perfect. But perfect timing is a myth, and mentally strong people have confronted that myth directly. They've recognized that the discomfort of taking action is almost always smaller than the long-term weight of inaction. They've learned to act in spite of uncertainty, not because they're reckless, but because they understand that clarity doesn't come before you start. Clarity comes because you started. They've made peace with the fact that waiting for certainty is really just procrastination wearing a responsible disguise. And they refuse to let that disguise fool them. The fifth and perhaps most powerful thing, mentally strong people will not tolerate is a fixed story about who they are. This is where psychology gets genuinely fascinating. Research by Carol Dweck and others has shown that the single most predictive factor in long-term achievement and emotional well-being isn't talent, isn't intelligence, isn't even opportunity. It's whether a person believes they can change. Mentally strong people hold their identity loosely. They don't cling to, "I'm just an anxious person," or "I've always been bad at relationships," or "that's just how I am." They understand that those statements, as familiar as they feel, are not facts. They are stories, and stories can be rewritten. This doesn't mean they reinvent themselves overnight or deny their past. It means they refuse to let their past become a ceiling. They stay genuinely curious about who they could become, and that curiosity keeps them growing long after most people have settled. Here's what ties all five of these together. And this is the part I really want you to sit with. Every single thing on this list comes down to one underlying skill, the ability to be honest with yourself when honesty is uncomfortable. That's it. That's the actual core of mental strength. Not toughness, not discipline, not some rare genetic trait. It's the willingness to see yourself and your life clearly, even when what you see is painful or inconvenient or hard to accept. Because the truth is, most of us already know what we're tolerating that we shouldn't. We already know which relationships are draining us. We already know which dreams we've been postponing. We already know where we've been living by someone else's script. The question is never really about knowledge. It's about whether we're willing to act on what we already know. Mentally strong people have simply decided that they are. And that decision, quiet, private, and deeply personal, is what changes everything.